Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the Flint webinar. We're kicking off it shortly. I want to thank you, everybody that's joined from around the countryside. This was originally an event that we'd set up for Christchurch, and the great thing about it was that we were able to turn it into a webinar pretty quickly. So really thank Edward and Matthew as well, particularly from Jade. Now, I'm going to hand over to Matt straight away, really, because we just want to get into this, and then I'll come back at the end. So, Matt, let me hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Cool. So we have an awesome topic for you today. We're talking about some of the coolest tech in unusual places. So despite the current situation around the world at the moment, technology is still developing and evolving, and it's very exciting. So we've gotten Edward from Jade to come and talk to us about technology advancement in a whole range of areas, including AI, machine learning, IoT, 5G, those sorts of things. So yeah, we've given him a pretty broad brief. So welcome, Edward. We're really looking forward to what you're going to talk about today. So I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Matt. That's the problem with a really broad brief, right? You don't know what I'm going to say and how much I'm going to embarrass everybody. But I'm going to try to stay on topic as much as I can. Good afternoon, everyone. What a great day for New Zealand today, huh? It's the first day of level 2, and I don't know if you noticed, but activity all over town has picked up straight away. There's a lot been said about getting back to normal, but also what is the new normal? We are at the beginning of a new decade. We can't forget about that. And we've seen the world changing over the past 10 years. We've seen technologies emerge or become mainstream at a speed like never before. This is the time for New Zealand to rethink who we want to be. It is the time of facing an almost unprecedented threat. That's true. A lot of businesses are certainly feeling the pain right now, probably not more than our tourism industry. But this is also a time of looking at the opportunities emerging out of this seismic event we're currently going through. How do we come out of this and thrive, not just survive? And there's nobody better positioned at looking ahead, championing how we reimagine our lives and businesses going forward than the future leaders in technology. With that said, it's really an honor to have the opportunity to be addressing you all today in the hope of inspiring you, in the hope of triggering thoughts and ideas that will change the course of New Zealand for many years to come. Today, I want to talk to you about the role that technology plays in society and show you how a few, and show you a few of the left field initiatives I recently have been involved in, just to get you thinking, and with a bit of luck, maybe even dreaming up the next big thing. Look, I'm not a big fan of slides. I kind of want to be as interactive as possible, but I did put a few of them together. I'm going to try to share my screen now, hopefully successfully, with you. And maybe. Or maybe not. What I wanted to start off with is what is the role of technology really in society? And the thing that struck me for a while is that technology was always an enabler. It's a means to an end. And without going too philosophical on you, if you look back at what it took a few years ago, a few hundred years ago, depending on what you look at, to have access to value, to entertainment, to amenities, and how much technology has pushed us into the masses. I mean, just think back. I mean, we're going back quite a while, but you know, you used to go to a concert to get music. But now we just turn on the radio. Actually, you know, nobody's turning on the radio anymore. Everybody's just streaming the music straight into the houses. It's essentially free. when at the time it was an expense and you know, quite a big effort to go there. It's the same with movies. You see it now with things like advice, whether it's wealth, whether it's medical advice, whether it's executive coaching, all these sorts of things that are person-to-person interaction, or used to be person-to-person interaction, and where people with significant expertise commanded also a significant cost. Therefore, it was only ever available to a small sliver of the population. And in the image here, you would see a population pyramid in a way where value was really only accessible to the elite, if you wanted to say it, right? And technology's role has always been about pushing that line down, making it more accessible. Yes, some of the things aren't possible without technology, but a lot of them were always possible if you had enough money. But technology makes it accessible to everybody, or almost everybody. There will always be a group that won't have access to it. So that's how I look at technology and what it contributes to society. So now I wanted to show you a few things that happened over the last maybe a year, probably only 6 months at this speed, just to get you thinking. One of the examples that I want to bring up is a completely random idea that we had. We really just wanted to have a bit of fun. It kind of ballooned a little bit into a bigger than life, well, maybe not bigger than life thing, but it took on a life on its own. Some of you might even have come across it before. It's Bella, the Digital Barista, where and I'll quickly show you how it works. But you essentially interact with your coffee machine just like you interact with people at the coffee shop. And the idea here is not to make people at the coffee shop redundant. It's really just bringing an experience into the household. And it's really fascinating how we played around with it. You know, it didn't really have much value other than it, you know, playing around with cool technology and trying to figure out what to do with it. And then suddenly we're in a post-COVID-19 world where contactless and physical distancing is sort of the new norm, and will probably remain the new norm for, I don't know, 18 months, best guess, is what you hear. And you say, well, actually, we just built a coffee machine that you could talk to, that you didn't have to touch buttons on. All you had to do is put your coffee cup there and then take that cup. And so in an office environment like Jade, or in you know, the incubator environments, all that sort of things, where you have shared office space, shared facilities, suddenly you can use this technology and make it safer for people. So the reason why I talk about this is to say, you know, if you have crazy ideas, it's not about necessarily having commercial benefit right away. You never know what's around the corner, and sometimes curiosity is just the biggest value in all of it. Good. Let me quickly show you Bella. So for those of you who haven't seen her yet, Bella was built in collaboration between the ARA Institute here in Canterbury, in Christchurch, a few tech startups up in Auckland, namely Ambit, who has a conversational AI platform, and Unique, who has what they call a digital human platform, a digital avatar that can talk to you. And so within literally a few days, we pulled it all together and created something that kind of looks like this.
Hey, how are you? My name is Bella, the world's #1 digital barista. Sorry, I only make one coffee at a time, but they're still pretty good. What can I make you?
Can I have a cappuccino, please?
A cappuccino is a really nice choice. If that's all, please place your cup on the mark and check the milk dial is at max froth. Let me know when you're ready.
Actually, what's the difference between a cappuccino and a flat white?
Cappuccino is a coffee made with 60 milliliters of milk foam, steamed milk, and espresso. Whereas flat white is 60 milliliters espresso with 120 milliliters steamed milk. Do you still want the cappuccino?
No, I'll go with a flat white instead.
Sure thing, so you want a flat white. If that's all, please place your cup on the mark and check the milk dial is at no froth. Let me know when you're ready.
Can I also have a muffin with that?
Man, I really love muffins. I'll bug the marketing team about this later. For now, it's only coffee, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. So we're sticking with just the flat white. If that's all, please place your cup on the mark and check the milk dial is at no froth. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. I forgot, I sped it up a little bit because it takes quite a while. The significance of technology like this is really to start dreaming bigger than what we've seen from, say, chatbots today. And a good example to compare it to that I frequently use is going back about 10, 12 years to the rise of mobile and mobile first as a technology. At that time, it was just, the new iPhone was accelerating the uptake of smartphones. And at the time, everybody thought the killer application is that you now can use email while you're sitting in a bus, while you're waiting for the bus, that sort of stuff, and potentially browse the internet, read some news. Doing that always meant that if you had a choice, if you had a laptop, internet-connected laptop in front of you and the phone, you was always going to take the laptop. You had a bigger screen, you had a keyboard, you had a mouse. It was just more convenient. It took a paradigm shift to rethink how we interact, or what is now possible with this new technology, to skyrocket mobile uptake and the phenomenon that we call mobile first these days. Because we figured out what we could do with this new technology that we couldn't do with the older technology, or that we couldn't do as well as with the older technology. So if you, for example, take the ride sharing, or the any kind of sharing that wasn't, it's just not the same on a computer. If I call an Uber or an Ola or whatever, a GrabMe, it is very situational, it's very contextual. I'm not going to open my laptop, connect to the internet and see if there is one. I'm going to find the next taxi in this case. If I want to understand how much energy I burn and sort of look after my calories and so forth, I'm not going to use a computer. I've never seen somebody packing up the laptop and go for a run to count, how long and how far you ran. It's even the social platforms like a Facebook, Instagram, all that sort of stuff would not exist, at least not to this extent, without rethinking how mobile technology would help. There's just no way that somebody would consistently take pictures with a digital camera that they first have to find, download the pictures onto an SD card, take out the SD card from the camera, put it into a laptop, load the photos around onto the laptop, maybe even do some image processing, and then upload it to a website. It's just too hard. Nobody's going to do it. Mobile enabled this. So what are the things that conversational AI, being able to talk to software, now enable? And that's what we really wanted to get across with the project around the Digital Barista. Everybody knows how to order coffee. If you watch that video, it wasn't a form-based interaction that we see from websites or even on the mobile phones, where you go through a series of questions like, what type of drink do you want? Do you want it large or small? Do you want it with trim milk or full milk? all these sorts of things. And then if you wanted to correct it, you had to go back and so forth. It was a natural conversation. At no point did I say, no, correct this. It wasn't a command style interaction. Conversational AI opens up opportunities by picking up context, by listening to what you say and extracting information from it and just make it happen. Sometimes it feels a little bit like magic, but it's really, really not. And as we've proven in this project, I mean, this took 10 days end to end. And the experience that you see is only about 2 or 3 days, really. Most of it was trying to figure out how to fix the coffee machine that we broke, attempting to automate it. So that's one aspect, right? And that's why I want to really encourage you, just think of it in a different way. What is the thing that takes conversational AI, for example, to the next level? It's not rebuilding the same thing that a wizard on an app or on a website can do. It's got to be something different. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, so I'm jumping with the slides a little bit, is something we do here in Christchurch at the moment. It's a computer vision / machine learning project, and it was born out of the Smart Cities initiative around New Zealand, actually, not just here in Christchurch. It's taking CCTV footage, or in this case, security footage. What you see here is the Riverside Market, and say, well, this is a completely new data source for us, right? In the past, we relied on data being provided through keyboard entry, mouse clicks, essentially interactions with apps or websites. But there's so much more out of there, right? There's IoT, 5G that will enable even more IoT. These are now devices that generate data without us interacting. And what does that open up? So what Christchurch is exploring at the moment is really understanding how to use this technology to do better infrastructure planning. Right? If you think of an infrastructure project like building a ramp to a motorway, we're talking about millions of dollars of infrastructure investment. You don't want to get this wrong. This is a way to generate facts to understand how cars move around, how people move around, and feed that into city planning. It helps with traffic accident detection, right? Being able to detect that straight away and reroute traffic, organize an ambulance to come around, all of which can be completely automated. I mean, the opportunities are endless. While I talk, I'm gonna have this running a little bit in the background so you see what actually happens. This is just real-time footage, not this one specifically, obviously. And you can just see how the software will detect animals, people. In the background, you can even see a couple of cars moving. You can have areas of interest like the entrance door to count how many people go in and out. You can extract all of this information at a cost that's no longer cost prohibitive. Yeah? If you wanted to get this by having a person look at it, nobody can even keep up after 5 minutes. You get dizzy. It's these sorts of technologies that will enable the future of tomorrow. But of course, specifically with something like this, the privacy topic always comes up. Is this going to end up in a surveillance state, or is it going to help? And like with any new technology, there's a positive and a negative to it. It's really how we use it. Yeah, if you look at nuclear energy, the downside obviously is mass destruction, but the upside is clean energy. It is up to us how we use it, and it's up to the leaders to understand the responsibility that comes with this technology. With great power comes great responsibility, and our future is in your hands, whether you like it or not. What I like about this picture here is that it's a really good basis to have these privacy discussions, because there's a lot of noise. I don't know, I feel really like people will watch me. It's the downside. But then think about your older relatives, people that potentially are now in aged care, where they don't want to be under surveillance, but at the same time, if they fall over in their apartment or in their bathroom and and nowhere is going to check on them for the next 6 hours, that's a problem. They won't be able to help themselves. I, for one, feel much more comfortable having AI or a piece of software watch them and only alert people if there's a problem, than I would have if a human would watch my granddad as he gets out of bed and goes to the bathroom. So there's a balancing act, I guess, is what I'm saying. And it is up to us leaders to define what we do with it. And then lastly, I thought the third example that I bring, and I'm going to jump again a little bit around somewhere here, also just because it's topical. I want you to rethink the speed of how fast things can happen. Obviously, we've all just been steamrolled by a pandemic, something that, you know, that escalated here in New Zealand within a week or two, where we went from, yeah, something going on, I'm not quite sure what's happening, to we're shutting down the country. I mean, even 3 days before the country was shut down, it was almost unthinkable that this would happen, let alone that we're all confined to our quarters for weeks and weeks on end, and accept it. So you have to be able to move fast, because sometimes things like this happens. It luckily doesn't happen too often, but the opportunities, the windows of opportunities are getting shorter and shorter. And so what I'm showing here is something that I've personally done in a non-commercial way. It's not Jade, it's not a commercial product as such. It actually ironically came from an education exercise that I did with my kids, where I wanted to show them, they're 7 years old, how to create some software. And we created what you loosely call a contact tracing app these days, a register of I'm here, these are my details, so that if there is another outbreak, people can find you. It took us 2 days. That's all, 2 days. We did it over the NSEC weekend as a family exercise. And you have an app that can scan a QR code and sign you in automatically in and out. You've got a bit of a back end that allows you to limit people and gives you charts around how many people are on your premises compared to the limit. And it creates one of those spread charts that says, well, if there's one infected person, who are the direct contacts, who else was in the same space at the same time, and then who else was in the same space at the same time with these direct contacts, that whole contact tracing problem. 2 days. That's all. Think about that. Think about how much you can do with this level of power and this level of speed. We need new leaders that are used to this speed, that are used to the speed that social has brought into, the speed that today's society works in, whether we like it or not. We need those new leaders, because my generation, we're still catching up. We're still amazed what is possible. But you've grown up in this. And I think that's why I want to wrap it up as well for today in terms of direct presentation. We need you, whether you like it or not. Our future depends on you. You have a chance to reshape New Zealand, because you are not constrained by 20 years of technology experience, going back to the days of COBOL, where a small change took us 3 weeks to deploy, if we're lucky. Yeah? We're in a different generation now. We need you. Thank you. Matt, do you want to take it over again?
I think we'll head to Craig now.
Sure. I was just going to ask you some questions, Edward. Just reminding people that are on the call, they can put their questions in the Q&A function at the bottom. Edward, you showed at the end there, you showed a contact tracing type app that you'd created. Can you sort of talk through some of the positives and perhaps the downsides you see of some of the things that have been talked about around contact tracing, and particularly, it's quite apt at the moment when we're obviously in level 2 today, so there are going to be different ways you know, in Australia, particularly, not in Australia, actually, when I was talking about Europe, I was looking at Europe this morning, and they're talking about they really need to see if they can get a across the board app that works across the country so they can get tourism started again. So do you want to just tease that out a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, contact tracing has, like, nobody knew this word 8 weeks ago, right? But now everybody knows about it, just like social or physical distancing. But it's also quite an overloaded word, right? It's everything from what you hear about Bluetooth or GPS type tracking you to as simple as recording visitors that come into your small business store. I think the key challenge for us as a country and for any other country at the moment is how to manage that balance between protecting both our economies, our livelihoods, and of course also our lives, and especially the ones in the risk groups. Right? So New Zealand took a stance where very quickly, from instead of flattening, we went to elimination, and by all accounts it looks like we succeeded in that. The challenge now is to say, well, as we open up, there is a high chance that eventually there's going to be an outbreak somewhere. And our only, well, it's not our only chance, right? But because we can just do the whole thing yet again, and it's going to be more stress, it's going to be harder on businesses than ever before. If we are smart, and I believe we are, without having any specific insight into what currently is going on national level, if we are able to very, very quickly isolate the problem areas, just like we did in the early days where, okay, there's a school affected and we have to quarantine the school, right? We want to go there. What we don't want to do is then have to shut down the whole city or even the whole country. Yeah, and this is where these contact tracing things come in, and it's a fine balance between privacy and effectiveness, right? If we don't know where people are, then we won't be able to quarantine or ring fence the outbreak. But at the same time, if we're just checking everybody all the time, how close are we to a surveillance state? And I think we are, in a way, we're quite lucky without being overly naive. But in New Zealand, I think there's a high trust that whichever government, it doesn't really matter if it's, whichever political party is currently heading up the country, none of them, I think, we as New Zealanders would consider taking massive advantage out of this data. I think if we were in a few different countries that are quite openly very surveillance-like, it would be a lot harder. But we have this advantage, so let's use it. And I think the challenge really is, if we were to be able to create this this experience, and it is an experience, right? I talked to Mike Fisher, who's the manager at Riverside Market here in town, this morning, and I said, look, they're using the contact tracing app that I've built, just so that they can keep up with compliance requirements and can help track down issues when it's right. And it's an experience problem, because you go in and out of the market, you can't stop. Well, you can, but nobody's going to do it. You can't stop and say, I'm going to spend the next 2 minutes writing down my address. It's just not going to work. It's going to work for a couple of days, but then we're all over it, and we just don't, we're not disciplined enough as a nation. It's just impossible. So the technology challenge then is really, how can you make this as simple as, and this is where the extreme came from. If it's Bluetooth, it all happens automatically, except it's never going to work because apps are constantly put to sleep to conserve battery, and therefore the Bluetooth won't actually connect. So what's the next best model? And I think what I've pursued and what others have pursued, because I've seen a number of these things come out, is take an approach around sort of a QR code type thing, where it's as easy as swiping your Metro card or your Snapper card, or whichever city you're in, to go get in and out of the bus. If it's that experience, people will do it. If it takes them, pause write down your name, write down your address, all that sort of stuff. Rinse, repeat every time you go there. It's just not going to happen. And this is the technology opportunity for us, where we can really help New Zealand. If we can get this through, if there are a couple of dominant systems out there that do this well, and we do have an outbreak, this would massively accelerate contact tracing and therefore minimizing the blast radius. That was quite a long answer. Sorry, Craig.
No. How about just teasing that out a little bit further, this contact trace. So you showed us a piece of technology where you had a camera and it was following people in and out of stores. Is there a leap from there to using it to track contacts? I presume you'd have to use facial recognition in that point. And how far advanced are we in that sort of technology to be able to do that sort of tracking?
That's a line I personally don't want to cross, facial recognition. Facial recognition software has become really good and quite cheap, to be honest. And it really depends on the camera angle, right? So if you have something roughly at face level, it'll be greater than 90% with the relatively cheap software behind it. So you don't need to have the NSA type version. But it's just going to recognize you, right? If you then tie a personal identity to it, like your your IID number or anything like that, that is a challenge, right? Because that is, yes, it gives you this traceability automatically, but it means that you're completely at the mercy of whoever does something with the data. Personally, it's too far away from me, and I think it's a little bit that how do future leaders think about this, right? And how do they deal with it? There's always this convenience versus privacy paradigm, and you can see this with the likes of Facebook, right? They have had one scandal after another for the last few years. People still use it for the mere convenience of sharing pictures predominantly, right? So if you then balance this against the convenience of not having to shut down your business, you can see this already. People are quite willing to give up privacy. So maybe it is the right way to do. It's just too far a leap for me personally. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. I've got a question here that's coming around your coffee machine. That's sort of a combination of AI and robots. And one of the trends that people are talking about is robotic manufacturing, etc. Do we need this? The question is around how do you develop? Do you need to develop? Can you develop robots without AI, or do you need the AI element as well?
No, I think it can be split. I mean, AI is the intelligence, right? And robots is the physical, is the mechanical part. Now, if you, in its own right, I talked to high-tech manufacturers up in the Waikato a few months ago, and they talked about their robots. And I looked at it. They're doing things like sorting muesli bars into packages at high speed, and all that sort of stuff. It's very impressive technology. It's not smart at all. It works on a cadence. Yeah, it's a rhythm thing more than anything, and AI can exist without robots. So both together then create these things that that are making their way into our household. And I got to say, I got one of those robo vacuum cleaners. It's changed our life. Not because we didn't want to vacuum necessarily, but it's giving us time back because that thing runs in the middle of the night and nobody notices. But it's also doing little weird convenience things, like our dog hates the vacuum cleaner. I think pretty much every dog does. Right? And so there was always a bit of a stress level when we had to vacuum, and then sometimes we pushed it out. Now the dog sleeps through the night just like us, and we still have a clean house. Right? So where smarts and robots come together, I think we'll see this a lot more. And our microwave, sooner rather than later, will recognize what we put in and will adjust the program accordingly. you know, the coffee machines will remember our taste and will be much smarter to prepare it. Our fridge will be able to tell us what we should stock up as we're passing by, you know, the next new world of Pack and Save. So all of this will come. It's just a matter of time and a matter of first moving.
Got another one here, which is, how long do you think it will be before we'll be wearing devices that will tell us whether we are sick or healthy?
Well, we're already wearing these devices. I guess the question is more how much further and how much quicker will it accelerate? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but you know, I always go back sort of in my sweet spot of technology revolution, which is really sort of the mid 2000s to now, and mobile being one of the biggest things that happened throughout. Right? And you go back and say, well, you know, at the beginning of this cycle, roughly for me, yeah, people started to have mobile phones, most of them actually, but you know, we all loved our Razr fold up phone type thing, and we sent text messages, and that was the end of it. And then, you know, we went to smartphones, and then within a few years, those things are everything from our navigator, our film producers, memory collectors, social media, you do everything with them. For me, the next natural thing is that these devices will disappear again. Yeah. So initially, through the wearables, so they get smaller and they have more different form factors. But eventually, I think they'll just go away completely. And AI will play a big part of it, because even now, it's okay to interact with a phone, right? You have those keyboards, and we have swipe keyboards, and it still kind of works. Once you get to stuff like augmented reality or otherwise devices, you have no choice but to talk to these non-existent devices. Therefore, by default, almost, there's at least a conversational AI aspect.
Yeah, actually, you talked about mobility. In your view as a technologist, what's the real benefit of 5G?
It's something that I'm still trying to figure out, right? I mean, the obvious things are faster speed, more reliability. We kind of go, internet here in New Zealand has been pretty good throughout all of this, like, you know, world class. How much faster do you need to be? I mean, we're already streaming 4 different high quality streams in a household without even breaking a sweat. I think what it does is it reaches outside of the metropolitan areas. So everything rural, agriculture, where New Zealand has a distinct worldwide advantage when it comes to technology. Those will probably be the main beneficiaries, as will be smart cities. You know, a little bit of the technology that we talked about earlier, having more ubiquitous internet without running any fiber wires and so forth will enable it. But I can't shake the feeling that we're missing it. Just like with the mobile phones, everybody's thinking of 5G as faster and potentially wider reach. But I'm almost certain that there's something in there that this is sort of the hygiene factor, and this will enable something that was previously not possible. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's a great opportunity for you to do.
Yeah, that's true. And the last question I've got here is around autonomous vehicles. So there was something in the paper this week about, originally the promise was that we would have autonomous vehicles on the road by 2020, and the person asking the question says, well, I haven't really seen any yet. So how far away do you think we are from having truly autonomous vehicles on the road in New Zealand?
I don't know. It's like with all of these things, it's really hard to speculate, right? What I do know is that Christchurch operating the shuttle, which is autonomous already, at least in a test drive. We've seen a lot of autonomous test driving overseas. Best guess, anywhere between 3 to 5 years. I think it'll be a little bit like with electric vehicles, where you know, for a period of time, I think you'll have a small subset, and it's going to be considered a little bit niche. I think with electric vehicles, we're getting to the verge of it moving into almost mainstream. And certainly when I was traveling a year or two ago, I was backpacking, well, not really back, but sort of backpacking through Europe. And particularly in the Scandinavian country, it was quite impressive to see. I mean, I was picked up by Teslas at the airport. For, normal taxis, I walked through streets and I saw them all hooked up like petrol stations just on the side of the road. It's coming. I would say 3 to 5 years before we start seeing them come through, probably within the next 10 years, really taking that critical mass, and with that, that potential, that promise of not just the driving thing, but blurring the boundaries of where you live, right? I think that's one of the biggest promises, right? That commuting time becomes productive time or sleeping time. Therefore, suddenly you can live up the coast or down the coast or in the middle of the country, and you can still go to your work, and you just sleep or you do productive work, all that sort of stuff, right? And what that will do to knock-on effects on real estate businesses and so forth, it's anybody's guess.
Actually, just to close up, I mean, that's a really interesting conversation to have, given that just in the last 7 weeks we've proved that we can do a lot of work actually not going anywhere, but actually sitting at home. Video conferencing is so much better than it was 5-10 years ago. What will it be like in 5 years' time? And so will that enable us not even to worry about having to go anywhere? So it's an interesting conversation to be had, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the same thing, right? All this, it was one of the biggest promises for me for self-driving, outside of improved safety on the roads and so forth. And now you have to rethink that. Is that actually going to happen? And if you do rethink it, then you can start saying, well, do I actually want to buy, if I had some money, would I buy land now? Because maybe I don't have to go to work anymore. Yeah. I think it's we'll find out as a society, because it's one thing to have to go to work, and then it's another thing to want to go to work, right? So if I look at the discussions we had at Jade, we're not going back on the level 2, or at least not for the foreseeable future, because of the recommendation if you do have a choice, and we do. But I think if I listen, and I certainly feel in the same way, I listen to what people are saying, we want to go back at least part-time, because we actually like it. We like working together. We like that social contact. We like the water cooler conversations that trigger innovative ideas and so forth. So it's great to have that convenience, and I think we'll somewhere land in the middle of it, right? In between complete remote and complete office.
Yep. Hey, well, Edward, I don't have any more questions. So unless you've got a last piece of advice you want to give before we go on.
I don't think I'm in a position to give advice. I can only reiterate. I have high hopes, no pressure, for our future leaders. It is a great opportunity. We just had a seismic shift in a way that it happens at best every decade, probably less. And it requires different thinking. And it's not that my generation doesn't want to. It's really hard to overcome 20 years of habit.
Yeah.
You've got an opportunity here. Use it. We all count on you.
Well, with those words, thank you very much, Edward. Thanks for giving us your time. And thanks to Matt for helping organise this afternoon's webinar. There is nothing else to be talked about this afternoon. So on behalf of Flint.NZ, I want to thank you, Edward, and thank all of those that you joined, and to let you know that this has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel later this evening. And with that, I want to thank you and good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you, Craig.
See you later, Edward.